members, and they had some nice comments, and they also asked Jay Merkel to please, as part of as the DFO, designated federal officer, please consider FPV and hobbyists to be added to the DAC. As we've talked about, there is currently no recreational or FPV representation on the DAC, and it's 35 seats. So some of the things that were talked about to me that were most interesting was the feedback from the FAA on two of the tasking groups. One was, and I'll go over this because this is sort of like paint drying, but it's was the BVLOS responses as well as the safety culture responses. On the BVLOS, I was talking a little earlier this evening, and if you don't understand the crazy code names, it's a little hard to make sense of what's going on. And so one of the fellas, and it was on a slide, said, we're really excited that we're still able to provide 44807 exemptions, and that's a great thing for this agency. What
Yeah,
the
I would say
heck does that
very,
mean?
very few people that were watching had any idea what that is, including me.
So part 107 flyers will still be able to get beyond visual line of sight waivers. Then the next line was, and then we'd like to phase over to airworthy aircraft, so type certification, etc. So I've been saying for about a year that the line is going to be drawn between line of vision, local or line of sight, and beyond visual line of sight, and it just got repeated again and again and again today on the responses. So that was one. Airworthiness and type certification will be required for beyond visual line of sight. Then they also talked about DAA, another abbreviation, so detect and avoid. And they talked about ACAS and XSU. Over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about that as an alternative to a capability for detect and avoid, a technology that really could work. We need something else in addition to remote ID when you're flying beyond visual line of sight. And then the spectrum discussion, I led that one, and it was a pretty scathing commentary on the progress of the FAA to date. And so it was sensitive, and it was happily reasonably well received. So it appears that it helped get things going. And there was a significant surprise in there where it said that the FAA is considering cellular operations for low altitude. So that flies directly against FCC and congressional mandates that say you have to have protected spectrum for C2. So that was significant. Safety culture comments. Lots of kumbaya, great job, backslapping, fair amount going on under the covers on that one. So we had about 60 people across the industry working on that, and so Alex was involved in that. I was involved in that one. I was also led back on the BVLOS. I led a sub team there. So the safety culture, a lot of work with respect to, hey, would like to come up with a self-assessment for safety. This was something, instead of having it come down from on top, couldn't we do something simple like a self-assessment on safety? The FAA's response to that, along with a couple other times, and this is the first time I've seen it, was they turned it right around and said, great idea. Why don't you guys in industry take care of that? So, okay, that's, there are tons of these risk assessments out there for manned aviation. This is something we can do and keep it consistent and useful. So that was interesting. In addition, we made recommendations in that flight safety about, we really should utilize the FAA safety team. This is it's part volunteer, part FAA people across the country. They're drone pros. One of our members is currently a drone pro. Alex, thank you. This is something I need to sign up for, and it's a good process and a good program. and the FAA said, we would like you, who are stakeholders in this effort, to promote the use of the safety team. In the one of the points that we made to the FAA when we made this presentation is there were about 160,000, 170,000 total users of the FAA safety team, and about 60,000 were member or had signed up as Part 107. So room to go. So let me get that back. Let me get that straight. We had at the time a total of 177,000 Part 107 users. Of those, only 57,000 were taking advantage of the FAA safety team. That makes more sense. And so, work to be done to let people know, hey, this program for education exists, because a lot of what we talked about with safety was, let's just make the people more aware. Then there was the low altitude. That was an interim report today. Next, DAC will come back with a full set of recommendations on that one. Alex around classes is participating in that. I'm participating in all three subgroups and doing a project manager role on one of the subgroups. So very much involved in that one. So it was also, while this is a bit stuffy and bureaucratic, manager role on one of the sub. Someone came on and had a mic open. Thanks for muting that. This was the outgoing and the most questions and the most participative DAC I have been in. As you may know, the FAA Drone Advisory Committee is an official FACA, a federal advisory committee. So lots of formality is required for it. And if you're not a member, you cannot ask a question. However, we've now got a bunch of new DAC members, and they're energetic, and they are asking questions.
They were not shy to ask some questions. That was great.
Yeah, that was great.
Or make statements, not necessarily even just questions.
Yeah. There was a little bit of self plugging for their own companies, which also the chair of the DAC. This was his last. Michael Chasen will be leaving, and he will be replaced with a yet to be a player to be named. So we don't know who his replacement is.
He was not shy to promote where he is headed.
Yes, and the person who really did a ton of work while he was the CEO is Diana Cooper. So Diana is still she is now in an urban air mobility capacity and job. Great person, great industry leader, and she did a huge amount of work for the DAC, and we look forward to seeing who Michael Jason's replacement is. Alex, any comments in addition to what those points?
Sure. Though one thing with that first part discussing Tasking Group 6 and the BV loss, there was some comment on BV loss in shielded operations type scenarios and stuff like that without involving certain equipment for detect and avoid, I believe, or some other of the stuff for watching for aircraft and all. So there was some comment on that, which was interesting. Other than that, I think you covered it all.
Okay, yeah. And so what came up was shielded operations, and Kenji Sukahara thanked the FAA for putting out an Assure, all caps. It's a grant program. They put out $932,000 across 5 schools. The lead school is the University of North Dakota, and this is a grant to investigate the veracity or the efficacy of shielded operations. So we recommended shielded operations be included in one of these tasking groups. That was the facility maps tasking group. We presented that was that October last year, and the FAA was silent on that one topic. And so a couple weeks ago, they came out and said, we're going to respond to this with a grant. That's great. So that means they're considering it. In addition, a similar but different capability, Notify and Fly. the idea of being able to, instead of having remote ID, I'm able to take out my phone. I'm in uncontrolled airspace. I have a Lance-like application. I figure out, all right, figure out where I am. This is where I'm going to fly. Request an approval, and that launches a capability to fly within a three-dimensional volume over a set period of time, and no RID required. That's something that we're pushing, and we are. Vic Moss, Kenji Sugahara, I'm pushing it, and a couple of the other DAC members are pushing this. So that also will come up and has come up in the low altitude work.
And I'm sure
And you saw that on one slide.
I'm sure if Bruce Simpson were here, he'd say, "Well, you don't need to spend money on a study for this. Just ask New Zealand how shielded operations is going, and it's solved."
Yes, and we did cite the fact that New Zealand back in October we pointed to New Zealand as a precedent geography and country that has put this in place, effective, and gotten good results from its implementation.
I think every chance that we've had, we've tried to insert shielded operations into just about everything, whether it was one of the tasking groups or several of the tasking groups. I think we've mentioned it in, as well as our response to remote ID, and a couple other, silly slide-ins, because it's important. And I think that the FAA is starting to recognize that it's important. And obviously we're spending money to several different universities to research this stuff. And so, I can't imagine that the information coming out of these studies is going to be anything but favorable for the community, because it's a really simple process. If a plane is flying lower than the highest object built up from the ground, you've got another problem. So, plain and simple, the drone is not the problem.
I wonder if we could also get the FAA to look into Canada's regulations on sub 250, which are basically, don't endanger any people or property and you're good to go.
Yeah, we've brought that up a number of times, and it's in addition to requesting a change to the 250 gram threshold to something higher.
Right, like we put 1,000 grams in our recommendation for remote ID, right?
Yeah, both of those comments have not been met with welcome words, but we'll continue to push it.
All right.
Yeah, TextJet, I think the 250 grams comes from a 2000, what was it, 14, 15 ARC meeting, and there's some documentation out there as to why they chose that. Doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, but that's their justification is out there, kind of.
Right. When figures presented unchallenged to executives of the business, they become law. That's one of those corporate doctrines, and that's 250 was picked up by ICAO, picked up by Canada, and not a lot of science behind it.
Like 80% of statistics are made up on the spot.
Including that one. Oh, that's awesome. All right, so good information coming out of today. All right, so second to that, and I'm gonna see, tell me if this works. I'm gonna test this real quick, because this might be a different, and I will post these links as I go, but let me see if
you're gonna try to share your screen.
I am.
We're getting really fancy today.
I know, right? So I don't know if that's showing.
I'm not seeing anything but our video so far.
It's showing. You just have to click on it. Sort of. It's showing though.
Okay.
I see it.
It did work.
Maybe
nice.
I have to change.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep you on your toes here.
Yeah,
change my view.
Where it says watch stream and just click on that little window, that thumbnail, it'll pop up. Wow. I'm impressed, Josh.
Click on watch stream. I do not see a button for watching stream. Okay,
right,
if I go over here to Cujo and click on it, now I've got it up.
Okay. Can we see it on the... Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so I see it coming up on YouTube over here. Sorry, just trying to keep everything in track here. So, FAA seeks trust administrators for drone pilot tests. So this is the big news coming out about the recreational tests that all drone pilots who fly recreationally will have to participate in. So they are looking for test administrators. We've talked about this before, and we were involved in the original kind of discussion with the FAA centered around the tests, and we've been expecting this news for a long time.
Yeah, I think Dave and
Um,
I were in a meeting in January. Was that 2020 or was it longer?
2020, January
Yeah,
14th,
Yeah.
a little over a year ago.
2020. Yep.
Yep. And so the FAA will designate qualified third parties to administer the test and make it accessible to all recreational drone flyers. Entities involved with recreational pilots, such as educational institutions, manufacturers, and aero modeling organizations, are encouraged to apply. So as of right now, we are applying to be one of those qualified third parties to administer that test. We will see kind of how it shakes out in terms of the requirements and cost, if any. We're hoping it's going to be free, if not very low cost. Trust will provide recreational drone flyers with information on best practices and educational resources to ensure safe drone operations. So the test was developed with input from the drone community in response to requirements included in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018 that required development of a test to demonstrate a recreational flyer's understanding of aeronautical safety knowledge and rules for operating unmanned aircraft. So with that, let's see, I can go. With that, will basically need to be an additional kind of structure behind just about everybody who sells a drone or drone parts or anything like that, I would imagine. So in terms of like if you're going to go out and buy, a DJI Phantom or something like that, possibly included on a card in there or in the instructions, that you need to go to one of these participating third-party sites and take that
I
test.
wouldn't be totally
Uh,
surprised if DJI had it built into their apps on their phones that you would have to take the test
well,
before you could fly.
I think there's already something like that on there in terms of when you first download the apps. I think there's a couple notifications that let you know, hey, you can do this, you can do that. You have to click through to agree to all these kind of rules and regulations before it'll kick you into the app. But they might just enhance that experience, I would imagine. But you know, there will be other retailers and manufacturers that will maybe not have that excellent connectivity that DJI has and immersion that DJI has, that will need to inform their customers that that's a requirement. So from everything that we understand so far, Dan, you want to kind of go into what we're kind of understanding about how the test would be structured and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I can talk about it just briefly. Just from
Mm-hmm.
the technical side of things, they're requiring it to be a SCORM compliant learning management system. So if any of you have taken like high school or college classes recently, you've maybe used something like Canvas or Moodle or Design to Learn or Blackboard. I think all of those learning management systems can take these SCORM files and create a quiz or test out of them. And then once you pass the test, it's supposed to give you a certificate. You are supposed to print or save that certificate somehow, and then the test administrator deletes basically all the information they have about you except for a serial number that somebody passed this test. That serial number is passed on to the FAA, and at some point I think they use that to verify people if they need to. So it should be relatively simple for anybody who's run a learning management system before to make this work. But I am curious to know what everybody who's listening to this, what their thoughts are on the FPV Freedom Coalition being one of the administrators. Is there anything we're not thinking about that we should be? Is there any downsides to us doing this? Do you see it as a negative in any way? Things like that.
All right. Any questions or comments on the test on the recreational exam?
And like
Followed by
what
his
TextJet was saying,
operator.
yes, it's supposed to be free for anybody taking the test. The people administering it can find ways to put advertising around it. They can't add their own questions before or during the test, but they can ask the FAA to add information at the end of the test.
Dan, is it stated in the write-up that it's supposed to be free?
It is.
Is that okay?
Perfect.
It
I
says
didn't
right
see that. So.
on the document. Let's see if I can search for
That's
the
an-
word.
That's an interesting.
Here, I got
that's
it.
An interesting. That's an interesting structure. And we all agreed to willingly do that, but
And I know it also says the FAA will not provide any funds to test administrators, so it's definitely
right.
they're not paying
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, this is an interesting industry relations problem, but we won't go into that.
Yeah, it is.
The answer key.
I'm sure there will be an answer key online within about an hour of the first person taking a test.
Well,
way
and
thing
here's
is,
the.
we don't have to really worry about an answer key because this test is so simple, and it won't really let you escape until you figure out the right answer, and then you're done, and then you only have to take it once in your lifetime. And John Solo had a question, which I know we've gone over this, and I just don't remember the answer, which was, if I already have my Part 107, do I need to take this recreational exam? I don't know the answer, but we'll
I
get
would
an answer
say
to that one.
I would say probably if you're going to fly recreationally, it's probably just a good idea to have it. And like Dave was saying, this is going to be a very simple test. It's not going to be,
Yeah, it's not going to be
a
like
Part
Part 107 where you need to
No.
know the flight patterns of airplanes landing on a runway and all that stuff.
So it's designed to be simple. It's designed to basically not let you fail. It's there to provide information, not make you sit there and redo it 50 times until you get it right. So I wouldn't stress about it. I don't think it's going to be, the end all be all of anything. I think it's going to be, maybe 10, 15 minutes of your time, and then you move on with your life and never have to worry about it again.
Right.
I believe they've said multiple times that really the goal is to use it as a education tool for people.
Exactly.
Right. But so if you ask the question, well, why isn't it simply an education module? The answer to that is because it was mandated by Congress to the FAA to create an exam. So that's what they've done. So they're trying to, the FAA's trying to lean toward us and help us out.
So if there's no monetary value around test administration and test administrator or the person taking the educational course or whatever, or the test, or whatever it is, then why don't they just make it a FAAsafety.gov type training type thing?
Because I think they want to have basically tracking ability of who's taken it, the ability to supply basically certificates that will be required if it's one of the required documents that you'd have to have on you if you are out flying and a law enforcement official requests it.
I think there's a
FAAsafety.gov gives you a certificate for everything you do, number one, and you have to have an account with the FAAsafety.gov so they can easily track you that way too.
I think the FAA doesn't want to spend the money on it, but I also think there's a small hint in the application process where it talks about when you're applying, you tell the FAA what you think your reach of you running the test is. Mm-hmm. So I think they're trying to say, hey, if someone like the AMA does this, they've got a much bigger reach. They're going to get more people to fill this out than if the FAA just does it on their own. So they're looking for groups and organizations who can get out there and reach people and try to convince them to actually take the test.
Yeah, I mean, if your favorite organization, whether that be us, the AMA, or any other, or I mean, even like DRL or Get FPV or RDQ or whoever, if they have a bigger reach, they can reach more people collectively than a boring email from the FAA that most people are just going to either delete or ignore.
And it still leaves the door open for people like DJI to incorporate it into their apps on their phones and their controllers and whatnot.
Absolutely.
or for us to say, hey, take a look at the rest of the FPVFC website. There's more information there. There are resources on additional safety education, also references to the FAA safety team. So
right, if we do host the test, there is the opportunity for us to add additional information. Specifically, say we know our target audience is FPV pilots, so we're going to put some extra information in there about, reiterate. Maybe the test doesn't talk too much about having a visual observer if you're flying FPV. Maybe we want to add something about that at the end.
Yep. Or we can, clue you into, like our safety guidelines or, stuff like that to help keep you safe in the air in addition to what the FAA is saying.
I see that as one of the positives of the FPV Freedom Coalition being an administrator of the test, that we could tailor things. We could get more people to know we exist because it'll be listed on the FAA's website as one of the test administrators. And I'll repeat my question now that Bruce is here. If he can think of any negatives to the FPV Freedom Coalition applying to be one of the test administrators, other than I know you don't think we should be able to have or be forced to do the test at all, but unfortunately Congress has tied the FAA's hands in that, and somebody has to do it. So should it be us? Well, Bruce, we know you always fly with your visual observer.
Which way is up? There you go. Let's see. I wonder how many orgs will require membership before allowed.
You can't. It actually says that right in the document. It has to be free, and you can't hide it behind a membership requirement.
Yep, and we from the beginning have been saying that we will never hide this behind a paywall. So not only can you not, but it was never our intent to. So,
is there any liability on our part? I mean, for
in
giving
terms
a test,
of
somebody goes out and start. Well, you were in giving the test, administering the test, and so somebody's flying under our banner, and we tested them and said they are good to go, and they go out and they create all kinds of havoc. Is there any downside? Is there any liability for us? If there's no downside, well, then of course we need to administer the test.
It's a good question, and
we can get out there.
We'll dig into it and see if there are appropriate indemnification clauses.
My first thought is the test questions are standardized across. Everybody has to use the same set of test questions. Right. So,
well, that's what I mean. If we were just administrating, if just a body putting it out there, then it hurts nothing. But if we're responsible for the insurance of it, then that would be something else.
Like if a local amateur radio club administers the ham radio license test, are they liable for anything if the person who passes that test interferes with things?
Of course not. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, that's what I asked for.
That's correct. But that's mine. I'm good.
No, it's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so this is another outreach from
the other point we should finally is that one of the things we're talking about various organizations. The test is required for all RC modelers as well. So this is not just drones. This is all small UAS. So
everything is UAS now.
That's correct. They're all airborne.
There is no model. There's just all UAS or SUAS.
That's correct. So
yes, even kids and their toys. As far as I understand it, it's just like all the other regulations. There's no lower limit. So if you're flying a 25-gram tiny whoop in your backyard, you're supposed to have passed this test before you bring it outside.
Oh, of course. Well, and you'd be surprised how many hours I have looking up at the sky when my son's or my great-grandson's flying his little 3-inch. Making sure nothing falls out of the air. Gotta watch him.
Great grandson, bless your heart. That's awesome.
Great granddaughter was flying it too, guys. She had her own quad and was flying a full size transmitter.
Fantastic.
When you started really early and you got a ceiling inside the house, they just walk the dog on the ceiling. But after a while, they get pretty good.
That's great. Okay,
all right.
So I took you off track there, Josh. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're perfectly fine. That's, these things are flow studies, right? So, how come Canada gets it right with sub 250, but the USA treats everyone like offenders? That's a long question. um, yeah, it's something we've definitely noticed. So, FAA announces application period for Lance. So once a year, generally the FAA has opened up ability for companies to come in on the Lance system. So if you are an aspiring, app developer or something like that, Lance, you can apply to work, basically develop an app and have access to the Lance API. So this application period opens up in May, on May 3rd, and it goes through June 4th. And by October 15th, they will have formal onboarding. So that's when they'll make their decisions regarding that. This is something that eventually I would love to see us get involved with, but definitely a down the road future thing in terms of developing an app and that kind of thing.
Especially if the FAA sort of goes the route of notify and fly, where Lance is
Absolutely.
expanded to, cover for remote ID if you don't have it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be fantastic for us to be able to get in on that with that capability. And if that becomes the case, then we'll probably have to sit down and seriously start considering that. But at any rate, this period is open. So with that said, this would be like your Kitty Hawks, your Air Map, your what's UAS Sidekick, those types of apps that you can basically let them know that where you are in terms of asking for clearance.
If you
in
want to compete
controlled
with one of those
airspace.
apps, now's your chance.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see. I thought this was really cool. This is a great example of yeah,
Yeah,
AirMap, the
Bruce, we're
tax
not
company.
exactly a fan of
Absolutely.
AirMap right now.
Yeah, no,
Or
not
ever.
at all. I honestly, I think AirMap kind of hit the wall in the US a while back. So definitely interesting that they're trying to push
They
that
did, of course,
agenda.
have a fire out in their service in their company.
Yes.
One of the companies that we are a fan of is Kitty Hawk, and their CEO has been participating in a couple of the tasking groups. Brilliant individual, and if you use a Lance app, or if you use Before You Fly is written by Kitty Hawk, as you may know, and Kitty Hawk continues to make Kitty Hawk available for Lance use, no charge to hobbyists. So thanks to Kitty Hawk.
Altitude Angel. Yeah, I have not used their app yet, but I'd like to check that out. All right. So this article is on drone soccer. Drone soccer might be the best way yet to get kids into drones. This is from Drone Life. Um, this is pretty neat. This takes place inside a netted area. I think it's 20 by 30. Oh no, 10 by 20 foot indoor mesh arena. And basically, one of the drones is designated as kind of the striker, which would be the kind of like the soccer ball. And the goal is to get that drone through one of the hoops. So uh, apparently, it started in South Korea and then has kind of worked its way across Europe. But in order to compete, you have to not only just have the drone, but you have to build it and code it. So there's a distinct STEM aspect to this. Um, there's no dangerous soldering or other specialized tools needed other than a screwdriver. Teachers and students get everything they need for success in the classroom. It's designed by the U.S. Drone Soccer and produced by iFlight. It's an injected molded exoskeleton that's rugged and durable. The program uses open source Betaflight, same software that a lot of us use if you're flying quads. But pretty cool article. It's a very long article. Definitely a good read, and definitely a great application of drones and STEM kind of collaboration. So that's pretty neat. Let's see. For those of you who are waiting impatiently for the new DJI FPV drone, there's an article here from Drone DJ with some pictures as well as a new motion controller. And I kind of highlighted something like this. I don't know, maybe
Yeah, a few
two or
meetings ago.
yeah, a few meetings ago from a different company, but it utilizes a one-handed controller to fly the new DJI FPV drone. Um, it says this will allow a pilot with limited stick experience and those good with sticks, but looking for something different to fly a drone in a new intuitive way. Think of it as a Wii controller for flying. I would also add to that that this would be a great option for somebody who may have a physical disability to try and get
if
into
you've got only
drones.
use of one hand, or if you like to
Mm-hmm.
hold a drink in your other hand and want to fly one-handed, or you're driving your car, probably not that.
Let's just not have a hold my beer moment with the motion controller, okay? So this is apparently a leak from, let's see, which appears to have come from Get FPV and then reposted in a drone. I didn't see that. Sorry, Get FPV. Don't want to get you in trouble. So obviously this group is not affiliated. Okay, here's the deets. So in the box, you've got the DJI FPV drone, the FPV remote controller 2, and the DJI FPV goggles V2. The drone ships with one battery, 2 sets of propellers, a gimbal protector, and a spare top shell or canopy. The goggles come with a battery and a USB-C power cable. Obviously, we know what the specs are on the goggles now. For those not yet into flying freestyle or acro mode, you've got the option of flying in normal mode, which it behaves politely, it says. So it'll probably have auto leveling and all the good things that DJI is known for with more of their aerial photography drones. So,
and we don't have long to wait because DJI announced today, I don't know if you're going to post this, but their official announcement is March 2nd. This will be released.
So
this morning they announced that.
Perfect. Let's see. It also has a Mayday button. The drone's controller has a panic button, which will allow you to recover from something hairy and put it into a stable hover. This will undoubtedly save countless drones and a lot of swearing, it says. Let's see. The separate one-handed motion controller, let's see, point where you want to go, squeeze for tilt, or squeeze for speed, tilt forward or back to pitch, and side to side for roll. Yaw will require you to rotate the controller. This will make freestyle flight far more intuitive for a beginner to grasp, and is really just a super cool idea. All right, so mini challenge for anybody who gets one of these and gets that motion controller. I want to see somebody power loop with the motion controller. That's my challenge. Don't break your stuff, though. Okay, please don't break your stuff.
So one other thing I saw in the leaked data that's maybe more interesting to FPVFC is that it has an ADS-B input on it, and it will show you something in the goggles when it detects an airplane in your area. I don't know if it's going to be really fancy, like tell you where it is, but it's going to alert you in some way.
Yep.
Sort of like taking what Bruce has created and putting it into your goggles.
That's pretty fancy. Yeah, it does talk about that. Features AirSense, which picks up ADS-B signals from nearby manned aircraft. Will send an alert to the pilot. That's because many pilots will likely fly solo, even though most regulations require that you have a visual observer. At least they put that in there, right? I was like, wait, what? All right, so there's that. It's definitely a unique looking aircraft. Yeah.
We'll know a lot more about it soon.
Yeah, I don't see anything about. Just shy of 800 grams. I was looking for weight, so it's a
796
porky little fella
or something.
Yeah, it's a porky little guy. So that'll be interesting. All right. I thought this was also. Well, this is coming from also drone DJ. United States Air Force Museum holds public drone flying day. So an event set up at the United States Air Force National Museum has seen micro drones racing around a course with the public watching on and getting to fly drones in a simulator and protected cage. The event was set up to allow the public access to some of the cool drone technology on offer. I love these kinds of events because it opens up the, it takes away the mystery of drones for people in those communities. It was something that I think definitely having the DRL event here in Phoenix definitely helped, just due to the countless amounts of people that were there. In terms of a lot of people I've talked to, they're like, yeah, I've never even seen a drone fly like that before. I didn't even know they could do that. So it definitely opens the eyes of people in those communities. A racing course saw the tiny drones flying in between C-124s and F-82 aircraft in the museum, making for an interesting race. The event was fairly small and lasted only a day. The organizers plan to create a larger 2-day event with pilots from around the country to give more people the chance to watch and fly drones and hopefully spark a connection for the next generation of drone pilots.
And crashing those mini drones into airplanes in the museum didn't like permanently damage them?
Well, from the looks of these things, they're like tiny whoops. I mean, come on now.
And they're indoors, so they're safe.
Yeah. At any rate, I thought that was really neat. And let me see, what else do I have here? I do have, this is a little bit more. How many more must die before we stay away from manned aircraft museums? Well, we did have the, that engine nacelle, decide to blow apart over Colorado and drop parts on people's houses. That was fun. All right. This is Airbus prototype that could deploy drones from cargo planes. So the UAV would launch off the cargo ramp of a turboprop transport craft and play a role in battles of the future. So again, obviously this is very military side of things, but
remember that Airbus is one of the USS contenders. They've dumped a lot of money into it, and they're very interested in being a USS in the United States. So this is a company that's absolutely looking to diversify from airframe manufacture.
So USS for those would be an unmanned service supplier. They would be the ones operating the potential UTMs that remote ID. They were looking for remote ID to kind of help kickstart, essentially. So on December 9th, 2020, Airbus revealed a prototype of an airborne launcher that is designed to carefully release uncrewed aerial vehicles or drones from the loading ramp of a cargo aircraft into the sky while in flight. This launcher is built to go in an Airbus A400M, a 4-engine turboprop transport that entered service with France in 2013 and has since been adopted by other nations' military. In an announcement video, Airbus showed an aerial target drone inside the A400M. Aerial target drones are affordably built, used as a type of robotic clay pigeon for fighter jets and anti-air missiles. So training exercise kind of stuff. The low cost of target drones has made them useful as a starting point for designing useful expendable military drones that fit the dimensions for launch from the back of a cargo plane. So, it almost feels like somebody watched like a flight test video where they launched a drone off of a fixed wing aircraft, and they're like, yeah, let's scale that up. So pretty interesting technology that's coming about. And I think last but not least, what's we got here? Loss of control. Control of a prototype airspeeder Mark II was lost, resulting in a flyaway and eventual crash.
Yeah, if you haven't yet, you should read that whole story. It's pretty scary. But it was back in July 2019, I think.
Wow. All right. Last but not least, and it's going to be Hobby Grade Electronics.
Yeah, they were using R9.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay. So, folding drone can drop into inaccessible mines. So, Prometheus can boldly go into places forbidden to humans and other robots. Um, says inspecting old mines is a dangerous business for humans. Mines can be lethal, prone to rockfalls, and filled with noxious gases. Robots can go where humans might suffocate, but even robots can only do so much when mines are inaccessible from the surface. Researchers in the UK, led by Headlight AI, have developed a drone that could cast a light in the darkness. Named Prometheus, this drone can enter a mine through a borehole not much larger than a football before unfurling its arms and flying around the void. Once down there, it can use its payload of scanning equipment to map mines where neither humans nor robots can presently go. So really cool, massive use for this in not only inspecting old mines, but in search and rescue and in the uh, God forbid case that somebody, there's a cave in or people are trapped. I've got personally in my family, I've got family who were coal miners back in Pennsylvania, and that fear is very real. I can tell you, for those folks that do that. Um, let's see. I did have one other one that Dave sent me. This is an article from it's a press release essentially from Drone Shield. It's a company that has entered into a new cooperative research and development agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate. Um, that's really, we need all that for Homeland Security. Okay. The research will involve Drone Shield's multi-sensored unmanned aerial system detection and mitigation capabilities, with primary focus on Drone Sentry and Drone Sentry C2. The Drone Sentry is a modular system that integrates multiple sensors, both radio frequency, sorry, not both, but including radio frequency radar, EO and IR cameras, and acoustic for layered detection, classification, identification, and tracking of UAS drones. Tracking of UAS. So this is a kind of multi-layered solution to counter UAS. It seems like, and I don't know enough about Drone Shield, but it seems like it's more of a detection and not so much a counter system. I might be wrong though.
I think they have both, and this is definitely so. Just for those of you who are not aware, counter UAS or taking a drone out of the sky legally is only available to the military or agents of the FAA. So they have to be a federal law enforcement or the FAA to take a drone out of the sky. And it is for a civilian to shoot down a drone or take a drone out of the sky. It is a felony.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we try to keep track of counter UAS. It is regularly a topic within the DAC, and it's a reality for us. And we like to keep an eye on what's going on, both from a technology as well as a regulation perspective.
What does the FCC say about counter UAS transmissions?
If you've got your ham license, you're good, right?
Well, I think that again, the only people who are able to utilize the technology at this point is going to be the basically agents of the U.S. government or the FAA. And that would be like DHS or FBI, those types of organizations. But yeah, anybody else, jamming is a big no-no. Yep, TechChat, you're right. But even beyond that, it's it's a technology that needs to be used sparingly and very restricted.
Right, and the other thing is that there are companies like Drone Shield or Hidden Level is another one that they do a lot of monitoring, and so they're finding everything in the sky, and then the mitigation or the counter activity can be kinetic, does not have to be radio frequency spectrum. So pretty easy to get around any need or a restriction to jam.
And I mean, even further than that is I would hate to see a drone taken out either kinetically or electronically or anything like that, because the same fear of you losing control and coming down and damaging property or, God forbid, persons, that risk would be inherent in that same technology. So, it really needs to be, a last resort kind of system in my eyes. I don't know how everybody else feels. I will say that when I'm researching for these shows or the town hall, um, the most amount of articles that I come across are usually counter UAS. It's a very big industry. It's not small. Um, and there's a lot of money in it.
It
So
came up briefly during today's DAC meeting too.
yeah, and
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Catherine from Department of Transportation, Alaska,
Was it? Yeah, it was definitely somebody talking about airports.
or Los Angeles. One of the
Probably the
two.
Los Angeles one.
Yep.
so, but with that, I am done with my side of things. Dan, do you have anything for us?
No, I think I covered everything. Just curious if there's more questions from the community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we're young. Give us time.
If you got questions, let's hear them. Let's see. Let me jump over here. Let's see. I'm late to the party. Hi, everybody. Well,
Yeah,
all
not
right.
much
Awesome.
going on over there on Facebook or YouTube land.
Yep. We did have Patrick talk about the mod study on lethality of shrapnel from explosions in relation to the 250 grams. It's something we've talked about a lot in terms of why 250 grams was selected, not just in the U.S. but pretty much the world over, as well as some of the interesting and potentially flawed studies that were dictated and utilized. One of the studies, if you're unfamiliar, I think was back from the 1960s when they were researching rockets and debris that falls off of them and the lethality of a object falling at terminal velocity and that kind of stuff. And it's a very old study, and it probably needs to just be put to rest. Anybody else? Any questions, comments, concerns, ideas?
Well, we should wish Bruce happy birthday
Oh, it's Bruce's birthday?
this week.
Oh, how many
Bruce
years young,
Simpson?
Bruce?
68.
Oh, wow. Man,
So he's got just a couple on me.
I hope to look that good when I'm your age, sir.
Oh shit. That means Dave's really old.
That's right.
Oh.
All right, Alex, you got anything for us, sir? Was that a no?
I think
Not that I can think of.
He's looking for a mic switch.
And Dave, do you have any closing comments for us, sir?
Just we're also working on. I signed up for the ASTM. Someone can look up what it stands for. I think it's American Standards and Tables and Measurements, or something of that. But it's an international standards organization, even though it has the word American in it. And we're working. I'm helping out in a project management capacity on the F3411, which is the remote ID tracking standard. The idea is, if you read the final rule, you'll see lots of references to consensus standards bodies, and so the idea is the ASTM will produce a standard plus a DAC addenda, which will the FAA. Hopefully, the objective is to have the FAA approve it as a means of compliance. And so, if I'm building a remote ID standard UAS or a remote ID broadcast module, I can just say, "Yep, I followed what the ASTM said to," and all I need to do is get a declaration of compliance. Thank you. And that's a big deal. That will save manufacturers and developers significant time and money. That standard took several years to create, and so we'll hopefully get the target is to get that update out by June, and that's a big positive, and that will help provide about 1 year to manufacturers to develop the broadcast module.
Some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Getting that standard out there quickly is definitely going to help everybody involved.
Yep.
All right,
How come
so
Bruce is so quiet tonight?
I don't know.
That's odd.
Maybe he's just enjoying the show tonight.
Oh yeah, Bruce is talking about how the DAC meeting YouTube stream stopped halfway through, and then they started a new YouTube stream, so they lost half their viewers who didn't follow to the next stream.
Oh, hey, that's super. I'll have to catch up on the stream. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but all right. Well, with that, guys, if you've got any questions, comments, feel free to reach out to us on Discord. Feel free to comment on the YouTube video if you guys are over there, and let us know how we did and what we do to improve, and any kind of information you'd like to see us cover in future town halls. And yeah, so with that, I will wish you all a great night and have a great rest of your week, and hopefully a speedy entry into the weekend for y'all.
See
All
ya.
right.
Medal.
Good day.